In the old view of aging, evolution has neglected her children in old age because, in the wild, hardly anyone ever survives to old age. So, the body is permitted to fall apart. Damage accumulates. The body wears out just like an old machine. Another part of this picture is that all the stresses of modern life are accelerating aging. Pollution, antibiotics, radiation, high fructose corn syrup, these are all stresses that the body just wasn't evolved to cope with, and they wear us down faster, shortening our lifespans. But in the 1990s, evidence against this picture began to accumulate. For one thing, aging takes a huge bite out of fitness in the wild. Animals do live long enough for aging to be a factor in their deaths. For another, people are not cars. A car wears out faster the more you drive it, but our bodies respond to stress by overcompensating, so that the more active we are, the longer we live. Animals, too, live longer with intense exercise. This is called hormesis. Other kinds of stress like starvation, certain toxins, even radiation, infections, heat and cold also increase lifespan paradoxically. If the body were just wearing out, this would be very hard to explain. And there's a third point against the theory that genetic scientists began to discover. These are aging genes. I define an aging gene to be one that can be deleted with genetic engineering, and the animal lives longer without it than with it. Dozens of such genes are known now in every lab species where they have been sought. The record is for a gene known as age1 in lab worms. When both copies of this gene are knocked out, the worm's life is extended tenfold. There's a completely unexpected thing about these genes in that they come in families that span the entire body. Genes for aging in you and me are closely related to genes for aging in the fruit fly and the worm and even primitive yeast cells. This can only mean one thing, that aging genes are evolutionarily conserved. That is, they are an adaptation, a product of natural selection. Evolution has arranged for us to die on a schedule. We have genes with no other purpose than to destroy us, suicide genes. Our bodies don't wear out despite nature's best efforts to protect us. On the contrary, aging is an active process of self-destruction, bequeathed to us by nature, programmed into our genes. Now, one implication of this is that the selfish gene version of evolutionary theory is only a small part of what's really going on. But that's a story for another day. If you believe the old view, then nature is our friend. Our bodies are doing their best to resist the ravages of aging. Our job is to help the body out. Natural foods, in particular, support the body by giving it the fuel that it was evolved to work with. Low stress, slower pace of life. These help preserve the body. Eat organic. But in the new picture, moderate stress prolongs lifespan. Hunger is good for us. Intense exercise that makes us feel like we just can't stand it one more second is one of the best things that we can do for ourselves. Even poisons can promote longevity. Well, how can this be, that the body does so much better at forestalling aging when it is stressed? There's an evolutionary story behind this. And in fact, this is the centerpiece of my own research. The reason that aging evolved is to take control of the death rate, to level it out so that everyone doesn't all die at once. In nature, starvation is the biggest threat to life, and it tends to kill everyone at the same time. When there's no food for me, there's probably no food for you either. This is a famine. We all die together. It's called extinction. Not good for evolution. Aging evolved for the purpose of helping to avoid population overshoot. to level out the death rate so the ecosystem can find its equilibrium. In this way, aging protects against extinctions. When there's plenty of food, no one is dying of starvation. That's when nature needs aging to help raise the death rate. But when food is really scarce, some are dying of starvation, and more death, like from old age, this is the last thing the ecosystem needs. So, aging takes a vacation when the population is stressed. This is the reason that things that prolong our lives tend to be uncomfortable. We need to send the body stress signals to suggest that there's already plenty of death in the air, and then aging will loosen its grip on us. In the old view, oxidative stress is the enemy, a kind of rusting out from the inside. But in the new view, oxidative stress is part of the signaling that tells the body to protect itself. Antioxidants like vitamins A, C, and E were tried and tried in animals and then in humans. They actually increase mortality. Intense exercise, on the other hand, generates loads of free radicals, and it's actually the free radicals that signal the body to go into its protective state. If you take antioxidants before you exercise, this can nullify some of the benefits. So, what's the message that evolution has for us concerning how we can live longer? There are three things. We've already talked about number one. There is no such thing as natural anti-aging. Aging itself is natural. We can only extend lifespan by fighting with nature, manipulating or tricking the evolutionary programs. We do this with exercise, with hormesis, with caloric restriction, and its mimetics. But that trick is limited to the built-in buffer that nature has provided, probably 5 to 10 years of extra life at best. To go beyond 10 years, the new view is deeply promising, where the old view was rather pessimistic. In the old view, evolution has already done its best for long life. We're going to have to think of something that evolution hasn't been able to come up with in 1 billion years. But if we think that our genes have a built-in death program, then all we have to do to thwart that is to throw a monkey wrench, suicide machine. Just turn it off. Interfering with biochemical pathways is something that the pharmaceutical industry already knows how to do. Hormones and receptors are like lock and key molecules. You make a molecule that sticks into the receptor, and this blocks the action of the hormone. This approach to anti-aging is very promising. In the new picture, where aging is programmed self-destruction, the body must have some way of knowing how old it is. This implies that there is an aging clock, or more likely several redundant clocks. There's the very exciting promise that we might be able not just to slow down aging, but to reset the hands of the clock to a younger state. The one aging clock that we already know about is telomere length. Perhaps you've heard the story. With every cell division, our stem cells lose a little of their DNA from the tail of each chromosome. Telomere length is inversely related to mortality in humans and in animals. Short telomeres contribute to all the diseases of old age. There are several herbal products available now that offer some ability to lengthen telomeres, enough to slow down the clock, but not enough to actually set the hands back. There's research going on in several labs seeking ways to do a better job of resetting the telomere clock with artificial, man-made chemicals. The best lab that I know of is presently stalled for lack of funds, and it breaks my heart. This is an opportunity for investors to step forward. We know that telomere length is an important clock, but we also know that it's not the only biological clock. A hot topic in research this last year or so is the epigenetics of aging. Which genes are active, which are inactive. This is gene expression, and it changes with age. I floated the idea just this year that gene expression constitutes a powerful aging clock of its own. that if we can direct the old body to activate a younger gene profile, then the body will respond by turning itself young. Now you might think there's some kind of youth serum, something the body isn't able to make when it's old that it used to make when it was young. But the fact is stranger than that. It seems to be the opposite. There are blood factors that the body makes when it's old, but not when it's young, and these are part of the suicide program that destroys us. Number 3 on my list is my final message to you, and it's a morality tale for our era. I'm part of a community dedicated to the extension of human lifespan, and we are succeeding. This is a wonderful thing for every individual who receives the benefit. But evolution tells us that in addition to individual good, there is a separate collective good. What's good for every individual may be disastrous for the community. This is the tragedy of the commons. In fact, aging evolved for the purpose of controlling population overshoot. For 150 years now, humans have succeeded in extending our lifespans worldwide. The individual result has been an enormous lifting of the burden of suffering and the fear of untimely death. But the collective result has been that humans are a blight on the biosphere. The rate of extinction is unprecedented, higher even than the great dinosaur die-off of 65 million years ago. There are resources that were built up over millions of years, and we're using them up as if they belong to us, with no consideration of future generations or of other life forms. We, as the world's top predator, sit on top of a diverse ecological base of plants and animals, ocean and land species, algae, plankton, bacteria, insects. If we destroy that base, we destroy ourselves, and we are destroying it with reckless abandon. People who imagine that the world can be turned into a great farm to support tens of billions of humans understand nothing about ecology. If our dream of extending human lifespan is not to turn into a nightmare of famine and resource wars, then you and I must split our time between promoting life extension and also promoting conservation, the environmental footprint of each human, and population control, bringing down the birth rate to match the falling death rate worldwide.